Computer here. This guide's going to cover which AD carries or marksmen can auto-attack Baron and Dragon from over the wall behind the respective pits, and why it's useful. So let's start off with some basic facts. Both Baron and Dragon require around a minimum range of 625 in order to attack them over the wall. At this range there's a very small area at each pit in which you can stand at. These will be shown along with the champions. These zones will increase in size as the champion's attack range goes above 625. But this guide will be focusing on the points available at the champion's minimum range. It's up to you from there to extrapolate. And scaling ranges will simply make it easier from there. Shown below is the diagram for each of the monsters. We see the X symbolizes the perfect spot in which you can attack from the predetermined minimum range. The color shading shows generally other places you could attack with a higher auto attack range depending upon the champion. So disregarding this, let's get into it. Which AD carriers can attack the dragon from behind the pit? This list will consist of the champions capable of reaching dragon from behind the wall and the locations in which they can achieve this, which I've already mentioned. Caitlyn. Due to her base auto attack range of 650, at level 1 Caitlyn can stand behind the back and to the left hand side of the pit and still attack the dragon as shown below. This however only works if the dragon is kept in position by another champion, as aggroing the dragon will cause it to move out of your range within around 2 seconds. Kog'Maw. With a single point in his W by Arcade Barrage, he can attack Dragon from the position seen below. However, do keep in mind that you need your W active if you want to reach the Dragon. And the Kog'Maw's range increases only for 8 seconds, so ensure that you're timing it correctly. This is actually quite a risk. If you use your 8 seconds up, you're not going to be doing DPS to the dragon, hence the overall damage you can apply to it for yourself and your team is lowered. Only do this if you'll get it relatively quickly and it's safe to do so. Beyond that, I would avoid using this tactic overall if it's very safe to get the dragon. Jinx. Jinx needs to be level 3 with 2 points in her Q in order to reach Dragon from the back wall as the point below shows. This can only be achieved with Fishbones toggled due to its bonus range. This actually surprised me when researching this because I thought the range of 625 would be too low, but as seen below it's possible if you stand in the perfect location. A massive note to this is that the minigun does more damage than Fishbones. The minigun gives you a free attack speed bonus which overall does a lot more DPS than actual Fishbones. For this means you generally, if it's safe to do so and there's no other reason to stand behind the pit, you should avoid it. Try to just straight up fight the dragon close range with your minigun if ever possible. But of course, if you want one of the points I'll explain later on into the guide, it's still a viable tactic. Just wanted to mention it does do less damage if you're not in a sticky situation. Tristana. Due to her scaling auto attack range, at level 13 Tristana can auto attack the dragon from over the wall in the points shown below in the video. This gets easier to achieve as she levels past this point, of course. AD carries can attack the Baron from over the wall from behind the pit. This list will name all of the champions able to do this, and the locations in which they can achieve it. This is shown below very clearly. I'm going to cover the champions very briefly. I did want to mention that Dragon and Baron, it's the same champions exactly for the exact same reasons, and the exact same 625 range. I'm going to scoot over these very quickly. I'm just going to prove to you and show you the point in which you should do it, and that's all. Caitlyn, she's got 650 range, as seen below, stand in this point and you can auto attack from over it. Kog'Maw, again with a single point in Kog'Maw's W, you can attack from this spot, but with more points in your W you can do it from a varying spot as seen in the diagram at the start of the guide. Jinx, at level 3 of course, with 2 points in Fishbone, she can auto attack over it as seen below, ensure that you stand here. Tristana, just ensure you stand here and with level 13 you'll have enough range. Why is this important? Learning to use this tactic effectively can be used for the following reasons. Number 1. Reduce damage. Attacking from behind the pit will allow you to assist in killing the objective whilst avoiding taking any damage at all. This is mainly applicable towards the Baron pit in which it takes more damage. The dragon damage is obviously avoidable. Number 2. Staying safe. When low HP, standing behind the pit can prevent you getting caught by an enemy engage and will give you multiple routes of escape. This is actually one of the most core reasons to why people do this, especially versus AoE or dive based compositions. You want to try to avoid these things as much as possible. The safety in which this tactic does provide versus the right compositions, assuming it's on your side of the map, is phenomenal, so always take that into note. Number 3. Scuttle control. If you aggro the dragon or Baron while the enemy jungler is attempting to kill the scuttle, they will take heavy damage or even could be put off and backed off the scuttle. This is actually quite a funny tactic, but very applicable if you see them taking it. Number 4, checking for enemies. If you don't have a deep ward in and around the pit and you've merely only warded beside it, this can be a very useful tactic in checking the area. If the Baron doesn't attack or Dragon simply resets, you know nobody's there, or otherwise they would have aggroed them. Number 5, scaring off enemies. Have you ever been in front of the pit and the enemy team is sitting there trying to bait you into a fight? Well, this is probably the most applicable point I can even mention in terms of fighting over Dragon. Similarly to the previous point, if you attack Baron or Dragon, you can deal free damage to nearby enemies. And then the burst may even be enough to scare them off, or at the very least provide a couple of free hits from Baron or Dragon towards your enemy, helping you wilt them down. Basically, walking over and using an auto on them will aggro the Dragon, and anyone closer, your enemy in front of the pit, will take the damage for free. Hell, you could even use this to finish off a low enemy who jumps over the pit. There's a lot of applicable uses for this. This is a very common scenario. When people are sieging out an objective and standing in front of it, use these auto attack points. Why not? Number 6, knockback. In the case of Dragon, attacking over the wall before you actually begin to start it can prevent your team from getting knocked back, hence allowing a faster Dragon clear. If you're coming in from behind it or your team's coming over, auto attack it before you jump over the wall, or just basically if you're running towards it and you're going behind the pit. This is actually quite a notable point. The knockback does take it down a lot of considerable damage towards tanks and bruisers who aren't ranged like yourself. So proccing this off, the knockback as early as possible is very beneficial. Number 7, the steal. Assuming the enemy doesn't pull out Dragon, you may be able to steal it over the wall. This is unlikely, of course, but still possible. With Baron, of course, they can't pull it out, and this you can just auto attack no matter what, but again, it's still not likely. I just wanted to mention it as a point. Number 8, pulling out Wink. Attacking the Dragon before you start it will make it move away from the pit, as seen below, making it harder for your enemy team to steal it, and of course when it drags out it removes the risk of your jungler coming off prematurely with the smite, of course. Number 9, this tactic can also be useful to cover steals. When standing behind the pit, you provide vision for yourself and your team and a potential zone for the enemy jungler who may try to steal it from behind the pit. A note is that you should only do this if you have mobility to jump towards the safety of your team and you're not overly fearful of the jungler. Of course, you should also have a ward in the side to make sure you're not getting caught out in this manner, but it is a very good cover technique if you're sure the whole enemy team isn't there. Number 10, lifesteal. Attacking Dragon from behind the pit will allow you to get a few free autos off before it moves out of range. This of course will allow you to generate a lot of free HP just for no risk at all. If you're low HP and you're going past these things, you might as well get a couple of free autos off. This is actually also an infinite lifesteal technique if you use the Baron. In the case of the Baron, you can lifesteal as much as you need and it won't move or aggro or take any damage from you. Number 11, Caitlyn's passive. Attacking Dragon or Baron as you walk by can allow you to get a couple of free stacks in your passive while you're walking to the respective lanes. Number 12. Twitch can also attack Baron and Dragon when using his ultimate with technically an auto attack. However, I personally don't feel it's worth it as you're not 100% certain you're going to get anything from it, and it's just an unnecessary technique unless of course you're going for the steal. Now, there are a couple of cons to this technique. The first one, of course, is that it puts you towards your enemy's base depending upon the monster objective. So if you're red side and you want to take the Dragon, you would have to go inside blue side's jungle behind their pit. It's not as applicable when you're switching it over unless you've got a heavy advantage and you're warded all around it. It's not as applicable. It does put you closer towards your enemy's base and very vulnerable hence because of that. So do be very careful with that point. Number 2, it cuts you off from your team. This is the main crux of the issue for this matter, to be honest. If you're off away from your team attacking over the wall, you have no protection, you're off by yourself, and when you come into the fight after, say, one erupts in the Dragon pit, you're going to have to go behind the side, and basically that's going to leave you extremely vulnerable to any assassins, anyone coming over. I only really advise this technique for constant safety if you're too low to fight, or if you need the damage and your support's with you maybe. They're probably the main applications of this. Overall, generally as a technique, if you're bot lane and your blue side Caitlyn, walking up behind the Dragon to do a couple of autos will keep you safe, and of course allows you to do the damage without walking through the lane and being of risk. This tactic is amazing, but it has got limitations. You have to be kind of careful on when to use it overall. It is totally applicable in a lot of scenarios, although they're sort of niche in a lot of ways. So do be cautious, don't try and use this all of the time. Basically, overall, only do this if it's necessary or if you want to use some of the points as above. Don't just use it just because it looks cool, don't just use it because it's there. It's there for certain reasons, for a lot of safety when you're too low. Other main points, of course, aggroing it against the enemy team is another massive point, and a couple of other ones I've mentioned. But overall, just do it when it's necessary. I do want to emphasize this. I just told a friend about this and they've just not stopped using it for no reason at all. So yeah, just try and be cautious with it, don't be too crazy. It is amazing in the right scenario, and I hope that helps. And that's it for the guide, guys. If you like it, dislike it, dislike it. If you like the content and you think it's really good quality, you can subscribe. And if you hate it, you think it's horrible, we're wrong, it's not right, it's blowing up, the world's horrible, you can just blame Arthur. And besides that, guys, of course, have a great day and best of luck.